Hey guys, welcome to Alex Goes Coconut. So with apple season just begun, it's the perfect time to show you how to make a delicious apple crumble. Apple crumble is one of those recipes that's so easy to make. It's so much easier than making apple pie. You don't have any crust to make. You can be a beginner baker and this recipe comes out great every single time. So for this recipe, you're gonna need around 2 pounds of apples, which is around 1 kilogram of apples. Now, if you don't know what that looks like, 2 pounds is around 8 medium-sized apples. Now, I picked these ones from my own apple tree, but you can use pretty much any apple that you'd like for this recipe. Now, if you're gonna go out and buy apples, I suggest that you use an apple that's a little more tart, like a Granny Smith or Empire, just because the tartness will really counterbalance the sweetness of that crumble. So it just makes the whole dessert a little less sweet. But this recipe is pretty forgiving, so any apples that you have on hand is fine. Actually, sometimes I'll use apples that are pretty bruised up, or apples that are kind of like a little more mushy and my kids don't want to eat them anymore, so I use those apples to make an apple crumble. So we're just going to peel and quarter the apples and cut them in small cubes, like in around 1-inch cubes. I personally like to have nice chunks of apples in my apple crumble, but if you like the apples to be a little bit more decomposed, you can slice them. So it's all about what you prefer and how you prefer to eat them. All right, so now that my apples are all cut into 1-inch squares, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of flour. Now, flour is what's gonna be the thickener in this recipe. So 2 tablespoons of white plain flour. Then we're gonna add half a cup of granulated sugar. So the sugar, again, is gonna help thicken up the mixture and give it that beautiful jammy consistency. Next is cinnamon. So you're gonna need half a teaspoon of cinnamon. We're gonna be putting more cinnamon in the topping, but I do like to flavor my apples with just a bit of cinnamon. So the next step is to add lemon juice. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice, which is around half a lemon. And the lemon juice will add a beautiful acidity to the filling. And now all we need to do is mix the whole thing. All right, so to make the topping, you're gonna need 1 cup of rolled oats. Now, I suggest to use the ancient grain oats, not the instant, just because the texture is gonna be just much nicer with these whole oats. The next ingredient is 1 cup of brown sugar. Next is half a cup of all-purpose flour. So the next ingredient is 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. We're also gonna need 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Next is half a teaspoon of salt. You're definitely gonna wanna add salt to the recipe just because you wanna balance the sweetness of the dessert. And finally, we're gonna add half a cup of melted butter. Now we're just gonna take a fork and mix the whole thing until we start seeing it come together. All right, so now it's time to assemble our crumble. So for this recipe, you can use an 8 by 13 baking dish, but I'm gonna be using a 10-inch pie dish just because I find the presentation a little bit prettier. So the first thing you wanna do is make sure that you butter your dish. So I have a little knob of butter here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and spread the butter everywhere on my dish to make sure that the filling doesn't stick to my pie plate. Next, we're gonna pour in all the filling. Gonna flatten the apples here a little bit. Next, with our hands, we're just gonna spread the crumble on top of the apples. I like to just sprinkle it on like this to make sure that my crumble stays in chunks. It smells so good. I can already smell the apples and the cinnamon. And I can guarantee when this goes into your oven, the whole house is gonna smell like fall. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but if you want to add nuts to your crumble, you can go ahead and do that. Chopped up pecans or walnuts are delicious in this apple crumble pie. The only reason I don't do it is because my son has nut allergies. So I already went ahead and preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now this has to bake for about 30 to 40 minutes. And I suggest you put it on a tray so that if any of the filling spills over, it doesn't mess up your oven. All right, so let's put this apple crumble in the oven. All right guys, so this has been cooling for the last 30 minutes. It's ready to cut into. It smells so delicious right now inside my house. And like you saw, this was a super easy dessert that took no time to make. So it's really perfect if you're hosting people during the fall season or during the winter season. All right, so it's time to try the apple crumble. Let's put a nice scoop of vanilla ice cream on it. Let's see if it lives up to my expectations. So delicious. You guys have to try this recipe. The apples are sweet and a little bit tart, and it's a really beautiful contrast with that crispy and buttery topping. I don't think there's really any dessert that can beat a good apple crumble. Alright guys, so I hope you liked this video. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more fall recipes like this one. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the little bell for notifications. Thanks for watching guys. Happy baking!